This is the Speaking of Writers podcast. I'm Steve Richards. The book is Please Don't Lie by Christina Baker Kline and Anne Burt. Christina Baker Kline, whose 8 novels include the New York Times bestsellers Orphan Train, The Exiles, and A Piece of the World, is renowned for crafting unforgettable characters and richly textured narratives. Anne Burt has earned wide acclaim for the psychological depth and haunting atmosphere of her literary suspense novel, The Dig. Together, the two authors blended their complementary strengths and talents for this new thriller, Please Don't Lie. Set against the rugged beauty of the Adirondack Mountains, Please Don't Lie follows Haley Stone as she attempts to rebuild her life after a series of devastating losses, her parents' deaths in a house fire, and her sister's overdose. Newly married and deeply in love, Haley moves with her husband to the remote mountain town of Crystal River, New York, hoping for a fresh start. But the idyllic town soon reveals a darker side. Her once devoted husband grows secretive and volatile. The locals' cryptic warnings leave her unsettled, and the free-spirited couple living on their property appears to know more than they let on. As Haley struggles to make sense of their increasingly suspicious behavior, she convinces herself that she's overreacting. But as winter closes in, the isolation becomes suffocating, and Haley begins to fear that in fleeing her past, she might have stumbled into something far more dangerous. I'm happy to have Christina Baker Kline and Anne Burt join me here on the Speaking of Writers podcast. Welcome.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Steve. Boy, it sounds good when you describe it.
You've been friends for 25 years. Can you take us back to how you first met and when you realized your friendship might also spark a creative collaboration?
Such a good question. Anne, do you want to start or shall I? I'm happy.
Sure. You go ahead, Christina.
So Anne and I met as young mothers. Well, I was already a young mother, and she was newly pregnant with her first. I was pregnant with my third. She came up to me at a bookstore event I was doing for my second novel and introduced herself, and we went out to coffee, and that was the beginning of our long friendship. We raised our children together. We lived a block apart in Montclair, New Jersey for 20 years. We were in a book club, 2 different writing groups, read hundreds of books together, and really kind of from an early point in our friendship, knew that we were simpatico in a lot of ways. And so we began collaborating in all kinds of things. We did a nonfiction book together called About Face, where we commissioned essays from women writing about what they see when they look in the mirror. And in doing that, we realized that we have a very sensibility editing as well as creating, and was working on short stories, ended up going into the workforce and taking a big job, but we were always creative partners in one way or another, whether it was just talking through books and ideas or helping each other with articles and essays and parts of our work. So eventually, when the opportunity came up to do a project together, we jumped on it. It was essentially working in a Hollywood writer's room together. We did that for 3 months, and it really taught us how to work on fiction together. And I think both of us, everybody's always confused about how you could write a novel together, and I understand that. But in Hollywood, people do it all the time. I mean, in writers' rooms, people create movies and series. That is all part of a flow of creative energy. And that's very much how Anne and I work. So
Yeah.
I'll let Anne take it from there. But I think
Yeah. The fun part of now writing a psychological thriller together is it feels like this kind of culmination of the ways that we can kind of play in the same creative sandbox together. We've both got such different experiences under our belts, but also, as Christina said, this sort of shared uh, experience of books, of movies, of analyzing other people's essays that we co-edited together, and really understanding what it means to co-edit each other, which is a huge part of writing a novel together. The other really exciting part for both of us is that the thriller space is a new genre for both of us. We love it. We've been big fans for a long time, and it's been really exciting to dig in, figure out how to make it work, read and meet some of our idols in this space together, and figure it out together as co-authors of this really, really fun book.
Yep.
Anne and I both come from the world of literary fiction. I write my recent novels are set in the past, and just wrote a literary suspense novel. We both have MFAs, and in the MFA programs, plot isn't emphasized as much as words, and we're big word people. But this writing this thriller together enabled us to embrace the concept of like really doubling down on plot and figuring out how a book is put together in a way that might be suspenseful. And I just heard from a student this morning, and someone I'm teaching next month in
Mm-hmm.
France, and she said she listened to a podcast we had just done that came out, and she said, "Can we please discuss this in our workshop? Because no one talks about this in
That's
workshop."
right. That's
Mm.
right.
So I just wanted to emphasize that that's one of the joys of this collaboration, is really hammering out how to tell a story from the plot inward instead of inward out.
Mm.
So,
Writing is often such a solitary act. What was it like to share the process, both the joy and the challenges too, of creating a novel side by side?
Mm-hmm. Great. Um, it has been just such an incredible experience. It's been a growth experience, I can say very much for both of us, not only for the collaborative work on the novel, but for each of our own individual processes. So our voices as solo writers are very different from each other. When we've come together and figured out through working every sentence of this book as a team is that we've come to what we've been calling our third voice. And the way that we came to that third voice, which is really unified. I mean, people who have complimented this book, which has been wonderful, have said it just doesn't feel like two separate authors wrote it. You know, a lot of times writers, understandably so, who co-author will switch off. One person takes one character, the other takes the other character, or chapter by chapter. We've put our hands, our minds, our ideas, and our imaginations into every page. So the way that we started the process is through brainstorming together a world, and building that world turned into a screenplay length outline of what the world of the book was going to be. So Christina and I sat across from each other at one or the other of our kitchen tables in one or the other of our apartments in New York with our laptops, and we built this world together. We then co-wrote the first three chapters, and we sold the book, plus a second book that's going to be coming in the end of next year, together as a set. They're both set in this fictional town of Crystal River in the Adirondack Mountains of New York State. So from there, the way that we divided the labor for writing the rest of the book is, since we shared the world, we knew what was going on. I took the first draft, pinged it over to Christina. Christina took the second draft, and then we came back together at our kitchen tables and we went through every sentence of the book as a team, including reading it out loud to each other, probably 3 times beginning to end before we were done with the process.
What surprised you most about each other's creative habits, good or bad, during this process?
well, you never really know until you work in on this granular level with someone whether you're going to drive each other crazy. I mean, we were spending 8 or 9 hours a day together,
Mm.
and I think both of us were like, I don't even do that with my spouse. I'm not sure I can handle doing that with another person I'm not even married to and can't yell at. But
You can
we
yell at me a little bit. I wouldn't mind. It's okay.
we really, I can't even, I mean, I would yell at you if I had to, but I can't, we grew very, I think we're quite adept at reading each other's kind of energies we got to a little addicted to our tiny little Diet Coke at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like we would have caffeine in the morning, have coffee in the morning, then we would have a Diet Coke in the afternoon. We had seltzer on hand all the time. We made big salads. I mean, we just sort of fell into a rhythm of understanding each other's. When someone had energy flagging, the other one might take the lead. Sometimes we just knew that we had reached our limit and we would like watch a movie together or something. But
Yeah.
mostly, I think it was Anne describes it, and she has a new Substack called Yes and. Yes and is the way we work together, which is a term from improv. And what it means is instead of saying no, but I don't know if that'll work, we try to say yes to each other and all of our crazy ideas to move forward with trying to see if the crazy idea actually is part of our bigger picture. So it's very generative that way. You don't, and it means that neither of us feel inhibited by raising our crazy ideas. And in fact, some of the craziest ideas have been the most exciting and have ended up in the book. So
Absolutely.
that's just, I think that learning that about each other, that our process has to be generative and not cutting off options, has been huge. And understanding that we both really want to work that way. And I would say two other things that are super important if you ever want to collaborate with someone. And the first is that I think Anne and I respect each other's minds equally. There's no one who takes the lead over the other. It's like we both really respect what the other has to say at every turn. And second, we believe, I think, that each of us is working as hard as the other on the book and cares equally. And that those two things are crucial, because it would not work if one of us were sort of like had a mind half away somewhere else. We have to both be fully in it when we're in it. My particular skill is that I'm really good at compartmentalizing. So I think
You
I am
are.
very much able to cut off the rest of the world when I'm working on our book. And Anne shares that. So I don't know if you would say that's your particular skill. I think when I had three boys running around raising three little kids and trying to write novels and teaching, I had to develop the ability to just shut the door in my mind.
Okay.
So
Yeah. You're better at that than I am, I think. I feel like I see you, you're really good with like put on the brakes, stop, and then come back on, and you're like 60. I'm going. I'm sometimes a little bit like but we get there, and Christina has learned that when I'm slower, sometimes it's just because my brain hasn't gotten there, and to read those signs in me. And I feel like I've learned to read those signs in Christina. And that was part of the process that was interesting. Learning that way that the gears turn in somebody else's head. That I didn't know about Christina before we collaborated on this book. And I don't think you knew that about me either exactly. But during those many, many hours, over time, we came to understand if the other one sometimes is just like going a little bit like, wait a minute, explain this to me, explain this to me. It's just because one of our gears has shifted and we see something that the other one hasn't yet. But now I've learned really, really fully to trust that it's just a hasn't yet piece. It's not a you're going in a direction that I think is weird
right,
piece.
that's
You
true.
know? Yeah.
Sorry, we're just talking among ourselves here, Steve. But no, I was like, yes, I agree with that. No, but it's true. And at around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, depending on the day, when Anne and I are working close together, we just one of us or both of us just short circuits. It's like
Totally.
the phrase is my brain hurts. My brain hurts.
Right.
I can't concentrate
I
anymore.
know.
We have to take a break.
Yeah.
So and my husband always says, because he works at home half the time, and he says, I cannot believe you two are writing about murder and you're laughing all the time. We laugh so much.
Yeah.
Because just the joy of creating and coming up with these twists and turns, we're like, oh my God, it's perfect. So we
Just
really
talking
get
to
it.
you for, 13 minutes here, it's hard for me to see you two writing about murder. Your
I know.
personalities.
Oh, Yeah, but you've read the book, so you know.
Yes. Oh, yes.
We had a
So,
blast because Haley is such an innocent. I mean, she's so our central character. We just felt so protective of her, and everyone else is a bit of a shark in our book. And we love that dynamic where we have one person who's really sort of our stand-in for the reader, stand-in for the normal person, and then all the other people are really angling. They're grifters. They have secrets. You know, everybody has a secret in our book. So that was really fun to do.
did you ever have any disagreements about where the story should go? And if so, how did you navigate through that?
That's
Yeah,
such a good question.
it's a great question. I would say that we had, I mean, in the process, we hit dead ends at different times, or points in working it through. We're like, I don't know, and we would throw different things out for each other. You know, I remember a whole plot line that we had of the backstory of the two main male characters, each of them their own backstory, and that backstory changed a lot. You know, the female characters' backstories changed too. And over time, you know, one or the other of us might be more committed to a different backstory. But then if it ran aground, that's when we were like, okay, we have to stop. And I don't remember, you know, when it was one of ours or the other of ours. Part of the process of having written it together over so many times is there, you know, literally, I do not remember which sentences I originated and which Christina originated in the final book. But we did have to sometimes say, hold on, we need to go back to the beginning. If we ran up aground against something that wasn't working in one of the climactic moments, and say, is this the right backstory? And one or the other of us would usually say, what if, how about? And
Hmm.
then we would dance around it together until we both found something that we agreed was a path forward. You know, something we talk about a lot in collaboration is, if you're finding a writing partner, one of the key ways to know it's going to make a success, instead of running completely aground, is that if you both have a similar vision of what a successful book in the end looks like Christina and I have a shared vision of, this is a good book. And other people think another kind of book is a good book, but we understand each other's idea of a good book, so we can identify when we eventually get there, and we can pivot when we feel like we're running aground.
You know, the biggest challenge of writing a thriller, I think, is so we're writing psychological thrillers. So they have to be psychologically accurate for our characters. You have to believe the motivations, but you also have to make dramatic things happen that don't happen in ordinary life. And when you're used to writing literary fiction, it's quieter. It's you know, the things that are at stake are not as large usually. It's usually not actual life and death, especially not several deaths. And
Mm.
like, so we had to make it believable for both of us, and to give you the twists and turns was a real interesting challenge. And I would say one thing I've learned that we're taking into the next book is that we hammered out, as we said, that screenplay length outline. But by the time we got like three-quarters of the way through, we actually realized there were a lot more twists and turns that we had like taught ourselves to write at a level in writing psychological thrillers that we could pull off more complicated twists and turns. So we ratcheted up the skill level for ourselves. And I think it makes it a more fun read. It also isn't necessary, it isn't what we had, the way the book plays out at the end isn't what we had originally planned or thought would happen.
Mhm.
So it wasn't until we got to know the characters that we really decided what would happen. And I think that makes it more surprising for the reader too, probably. At least that's my theory.
I want to talk about balance here. How did you balance Christina's background in sweeping, character-driven historical fiction with Anne's experience in psychological suspense to craft this unified thriller?
Um, thank goodness Christina had the sweeping historical fiction background, because she's an incredible, both big picture thinker, but also a deeply granular writer at the same time. And I learned as a writer working with Christina as she toggled between both of those incredible skills that have been honed over many, many novels. Also, though, Christina has written many more novels other than the historical fiction that she's known for in the more recent part of her career. She's written several novels, including, I think your second novel, Christina, was
Yeah.
pretty close. There was a lot of suspense. There was a body and there was a mystery. And so you've worked in that space before. So
Right.
it was not totally new to you either.
Yeah, I think we both, it's not as far as it fetched as it seems. Anne's book is um, very character driven. All the things you described about my work are present in Anne's, and she's writing a book set in the past at the moment, and so we're very much in a similar vein. I think the books we read, the books we write. Anne hasn't written as many because she had this huge career, had another job.
That
Um,
happens.
but I think our sensibility, even though you say we're quite different and our writing style maybe is quite different, we bring as I said, the shared hundreds of books we've read and the
Yeah.
kinds of books we like to read. We both went to Yale. We both did MFA programs. We both studied English literature and history, et cetera. But
Yeah, there's a shared vocabulary, a shared language that
yeah,
helps us come together around the ideas of what we're doing. And then in terms of the actual writing, every book has to be written to its own best conclusion. So our writing style for this book became the writing style that this book needed to be the best book it could be. And that's
yeah.
what we drove toward together.
The Adirondack setting, let's talk about sense of place here, is both beautiful and claustrophobic. Why was this the perfect backdrop for Haley's story?
Mm.
I'll start with that one, I guess. So, as I mentioned, I'm in Maine at the moment. I have a house in Maine and grew up going to the Berkshires. We both live in New York City and know the Adirondacks quite well. And it felt like a place in between. I wasn't going to make her write about Maine. I don't really know much about the Berkshires, but we both know the Adirondacks, and they all have intense winters. They all have great isolation. They all have gorgeous vistas and forests and mountains and all of that. So
And very spotty internet. That
very
was
spotty
important to our
internet. Oh my
book.
gosh,
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I thought once we had cell phones that it would be a ruined opportunity to have spotty internet, but here I am in Maine, and it's impossible for me to get a signal when I leave the house. So I've been laughing
Which
about
is a
that a
good thing, right? Being
Yeah, I
off the
guess.
grid a little bit.
Although if you're in trouble, it's maybe a little scary.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's a good thing for a thriller. I'll say
It's
that
a
much.
Yes.
very good thing for a thriller. There are all kinds of ways Anne and I just wrote an article about technology, about writing a thriller in the age of technology,
Mm.
which was super fun to write. Anyway, but I think it's just the perfect setting because we made up our little town. We populated it with people who are interesting. There are people in our first novel, this novel, who appear in the second novel, quite a few people. We won't say who because it would give away the story for the first one, but we soon came to feel very much at home in Crystal River, in the Adirondacks. And in fact, we spent a week together at an Airbnb in the Adirondacks in a very kind of adjacent place to Crystal River, and soaked up the atmosphere and really kind of absorbed it for the book.
Yeah. I think the other piece about the Adirondacks as the perfect place for this book is that our main character, Haley, is coming from New York City, where she has made a life for herself ever since she was a child. She grew up in Florida until she went to college, but for a dozen years, she's called New York City home. And her husband, Brandon, grew up in this town of Crystal River. When Haley is looking to escape her past and find something new and different, she decides, okay, I'm going to take a shot with Brandon at his hometown, and it's completely foreign to her. So while Christina and I can create a very believable setting in the Adirondacks, we can also project ourselves into our character Haley as New York City people, then suddenly moving into a place where everything is different and there are coyotes howling at night and there's the rustle of the trees instead of the sound of the traffic, and how much that can create that sense of fear, of isolation, of paranoia. And it's important for our character Haley because she doesn't know whether she's paranoid because she's in this really unfamiliar wooded place or she's paranoid because there's a good reason to be paranoid. And so that balance is going on throughout the book. Is this me or is this them?
All right, I want you both to be for a moment flies on the wall at the book club meeting at a local library discussing your book. What do you hope book clubs will grapple with when they discuss it?
Oh my gosh, I haven't even thought of that. Really? I mean, we've done a lot of podcasts and talked to a lot of people who've read the book already, which is fun. But what do I hope they'll grapple with? I think we tried to create characters who have some complexity. One of the things we tackled in this book is we looked at the self-help industry. And so our beloved Haley reads self-help books to try to figure out the trauma that she's gone through in her life. And I'd love for readers to grapple with that,
Yeah.
among other things. I'll let Anne say what she would like people to think about. But just to
Yeah.
talk about the role of self-help books in both improving people's lives and perhaps muddying the waters for people, depending on the advice. Anne, what
Mhm.
would you say?
That's a great one. So
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I would also say that, even though this is a thriller, so we take things to extreme, there's a big theme behind this about how well you really know the people that you think you know, whether it's the person you're married to, or your friend who's a lifelong friend, or your friend who's a new friend, or yourself. Who do I trust and why? And how well do I know somebody? And what are the lies that other people tell me and the lies I tell myself to get through a situation? I would love to listen to book groups talk about that element of the characters and how do they look at their own lives and the lives of people around them and other novels, and how does that theme resonate for them?
I mentioned earlier you have a 25-year friendship. How has it changed, if it has, through this collaboration?
I think it
It
changes every
definitely
day.
has.
I think it changes every day. I mean, for one thing, both of us are empty nesters now. So we have a lot more freedom um, to do the work that we love. And I think Anne now, having been able to pivot to writing books, and she's, as I told you, she's working on another one. I have a book coming out. It's actually set in North Carolina next May. Um, I think that we are able to really embrace our creative selves, I would say, in a way that we've never been able to do before, and that our experience of working together is just more generative joy for us because honestly, this is how I love to live. I traveled for 5 weeks in June and July. I was in London, Paris, and Ireland. And my perfect vision is not to be trekking around all day long. My husband and I both were working until about 3 or 4, and then we would have go to a museum, go to dinner. We would do something, but it was just so nice to be able to kind of immerse ourselves in our work. And I think that Anne and I share that interest and desire. Neither of us are ever going to retire. You
Yeah.
know, I don't
What
know. What
what
would
would
you
that be
say?
like?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a way that it's changed our friendship is that by creating this book and the next one, and sort of we always are talking about the next one. It's like we have a sort of a secret world. It's almost like we're two. I feel like it's like we're young kids again, and when I'm playing make believe, but nobody else understands the make believe except us. So sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and there will be, I kid you not, like 8 text messages from Christina because like she was awake in the middle of the night and she had 20 thoughts and wrote and read 7 articles and was like this could happen in Crystal River, and what about this, and can we do this, and sometimes she wakes
Vice
up and
versa.
has the other way, and it's another world. It really is this sort of imaginary place that we go to together that only Christina and I understand what we're doing, and so that's a little bit separate from our lives. We share a lot of friends. As couples, we're very friendly with each other, and that's all wonderful and great, but that's a little different. This is something that just is existing in sort of a constant place in the back of both of our brains, and it's fantastic.
What's the best
I
thing
think that's
about
right. Yeah.
what's the best thing about being authors?
Mm,
Just living in your brain. all the time and taking joy in that you feel like flypaper. Everything that you experience is potentially going to be used in some way in your creative world. And so it makes you very observant and very like a sponge. It's just such a fun way to live, to have your brain operating on a that level all the time. It just feels fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't believe I get to do this for a living. I think it's the most magical thing that I could do. And I've done a lot of things for a living. I'll just leave that out there. But this is by far the most exciting, the most generative. And the cool thing is it's exciting when I'm alone in my room. And that you can't say a lot. I mean, it's really wonderful that Christina and I get to be in a room together, and that's really fun. But it's also equally wonderful when I can have those periods of time where I can just shut a door, and then for hours and hours, I don't go anywhere, I don't see anyone, but I feel like this fullness, this excitement, this energy all the time. Now, it doesn't always go really well each day, of course. Some days
Right.
are very frustrating, but just the big arc of it, that's what's the most fun part. You didn't ask what the hardest part was. So yes, the most fun part is,
That's true. He did not.
yeah,
It is work. All the authors I've had on here over the years, they always say that getting in that chair, getting the butt in that chair every day to work.
it is so hard.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. That's the answer to that other question for sure.
Did
Well,
you?
because you're always coming up against your limitations when that's the hard thing is that you have a vision in your head of how perfect something might be or how erudite you are, whatever, and it just fails miserably every time. It's always a process.
Yeah.
Did you get this far in your dreams when you were young?
Oh, no, I did not know I would be a writer. I didn't, my parents were professors, but nobody cared much about fiction,
Mm.
and I did not know. I thought I would be an editor. My glamorous idea was that I was going to be a book editor or back in the day of magazines, even a magazine editor.
Mm.
But I didn't know that I would be a writer. I feel like I got lucky along the way.
And
I had the opposite experience. I had huge dreams as a young person. I wanted to be a novelist. I wanted to be a star on Broadway. I wanted to be all of those things until I went to college and looked around me and saw people who I knew were actually about to be those things.
mm,
And then I got scared. I really did. I shut my own expectations down and I really lowered my expectations to the degree that it was an impediment I created for myself in finding my dreams. And I feel lucky in the opposite way. I feel lucky that there was something in me that was stubborn enough to say, you know what, this novelist dream of yours, you're going to be miserable if you give it up forever. And that part of me kept just sort of like poking and saying, do it, do it, do it. And I finally did. I mean, my debut novel came out when I was in my mid 50s.
mhm.
And I was just kind of eventually stubborn enough to just say, I'm not going to be happy unless I keep going. And I did.
All right, we're going to wrap up with some fun questions, our little lightning round here. If Please Don't Lie were adapted for the screen, who would your dream cast? Who would you dream cast as Haley and her husband?
Oh my gosh, we've talked about this. I mean, the obvious choice for either Haley, perhaps, or Megan is Megan Fahey, who's in many things at the moment. Who else did we say, Anne?
Oh, I think for Megan, who's this, you didn't ask Megan, but she's the other main female character, Aubrey Plaza would be an amazing, amazing choice for her.
Yes,
Absolutely.
we love that
Um,
idea. And we had a Brandon in mind now. Oh, well, Will Sharp is so amazing.
Mm.
mhm.
I mean, basically, some of those White Lotus cast members would be terrific. Sydney Sweeney could also play Haley. I mean, there are, but these people are white hot in this exact moment. I've
Right.
had a bunch of my novels, bought for the screen, and it's so funny to look at the people we consider that
Hmm.
we've talked about along the way because it's this ephemeral process, really, where
Yeah.
like, they
Yeah.
all, people, time moves on.
Yep. Well, we're of a different generation, and our original idea for Brandon was, what if it was a young, current Ben Affleck? So that kind of
Right.
spoke to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of the Gone Girl idea with
Hmm.
Ben Affleck, those characters.
All right. Adirondack survival kit. Three things each of you would bring if stranded in a cabin in the winter.
Ooh. Okay.
Go
Three
first.
things. All right, I'll go first. A really, really warm down sleeping bag. One. Two, a magic lantern that would never go out, so you could always have light.
Hmm.
And three, in honor of Please Don't Lie, I'm going to say a crossbow.
Ooh, and that's intense. I think I would starve to death and freeze to death because I'm so ill-equipped. I was gonna say one of those blankets you keep in your car with the reflective side and but I like all of Anne's ideas. I'm gonna go with her on this.
All right. And finally, describe Please Don't Lie in three words. One from Christina, one from Anne, and one you both agree on.
Propulsive.
Twisty.
Surprising.
Let's see. Surprising. What about atmospheric?
Atmospheric is great. I like that.
All right.
Okay,
Good
we're
ones.
agreeing on atmospheric.
Yes, we are. We believe it is quite atmospheric. I hope you agree.
The book is Please Don't Lie, Christina Baker Kline and Ann Burt, and they teased a few times. They've got another one coming end of next year, right?
Yes,
All
called
right.
Watch Her Lie at
Yep.
the
Watch Her Lie. All right. So there is more coming from the two of them, and they have individual projects coming out as well in between. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much.
And this is the Speaking of
Thank you,
Writers.
Steve. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. This is the Speaking of Writers podcast. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Steve Richards.